Welcome everyone to the DC Beer Show. Hope you enjoyed that new vibe check we've got in the intro. We are at DC Beer across social media. Hey Brandy, what you drinking tonight?
Man, Jake, I am not currently drinking anything, but I went over to Shelter and had a bunch of little tasters of some great beer. I had a couple of Bluejacket beers. I had a delicious Trillium. I had a Goza from Halfway Crooks. I had some really great little. I had a brown ale and a brown porter. It was lovely having the array of beers over at Shelter and some sushi, some killer sushi. So if you all haven't checked out Shelter, I highly recommend, because I got everything from Perennial to Trillium to Lost Generations collab beer. So yeah. What are you drinking, Mr. Stein?
Well, Brandy, speaking of Lost Generations collaborative beer, I am drinking Tiger Spirit.
That's the one.
Yeah, Tiger Spirit. You know, it's a collab, but usually collabs are two. This is a tripartite or a quartet, or maybe even a quintet collaborative beer, because it's got Bluejacket on the can. It's got Chefs Stopping AAPI, Asian American Pacific Islander Hate, which is a group with Tim Ma and Kevin Chen are the co-founders of it. I've also got Imperial Yeast there on the can, but what's really cool about Chef Stopping AAPI Hate is that 10% of all proceeds from the Tiger Spirit beer, which is not just at Lost Generation, it's also at Shelter and Bluejacket, is that 10% of these proceeds donated to Chefs Stopping Asian American Pacific Islander Hate. You love to see it. Increase the peace, decrease the hate. And I just have to say, Tiger Spirit, it's a wit beer, and it's that classic wit. It's full-bodied from the wheat. It's low ABV, 4.8%. It's just hitting on all the right notes. And as a quintet does, there is a richness in this beer that is so beautiful. I have to give kudos to Anne and Jared at Lost Generation, as well as Tim Ma from Chef Stopping PI Hate, Tim Liu from Bluejacket, and then lastly, the people from 50 Hertz, which is this wonderful, spice and ingredient company that got in on the Lost Generation collaboration. Jake Scoops Berg.
Hey.
What are you?
So yeah, I was also going to shout out Yao over at 50 Hertz Tingly Foods. They also do like the Szechuan peppercorn flavored peanuts. They're delightful. They go great with a wide array of beers. Check them out. It is now Kolsch weather, and so I have Suarez's Rappaport Kolsch style ale. Got that yeast really, really nicely done, keeping it crisp, but like a little bit of fruit, slightly darker than Helles. Little more carbonation would be nice, but I was quite pleased. Thank you to whoever brought that to me. All right, the first order of business is that Flying Dog is flying the coop, and they just got bought by FX Matt, who you might best know from Saranac and the Kirkland brand beers that they sell at Costco.
It's kind of ironic that the tagline for Flying Dog more recently, since 2017, has been America's most disobedient brewery. And I don't know that I would call FX Matt America's most obedient brewery, but they have really made their mark playing it true to style. The Saranac beers, whether it's the Black Forest Schwartz beer, their black lager, or they've got some pale ales and some IPAs, but they're very what I would call safe beers, in that you would never buy the Schwartz beer and be like, oh, this is too roasty. You would never buy, the pale ale and be like, oh, this is too bitter, or this is too hazy, it's too hoppy. They're always to style, and they're well-made beers. But it's just fascinating that Flying Dog, the brewery who many former employees call the marketing company with a brewing problem, would be bought out by what I believe is America's second oldest brewery. And Flying Dog is no spring chicken themselves. They are 20 some odd years old at this point in time. But it's really interesting that in the press release, CEO Jim Caruso said, if the business environment were more hospitable in Frederick, he said he loves Frederick, but the business environment is not hospitable. And sadly, what that means for Flying Dog employees, probably some layoffs. Well, stay tuned to DC Beer Media, dcbeer.com, and we will keep you posted on the developments as they unfold.
I want to add that this comes right on the heels. The Diageo slash Guinness, these facilities over at the Halethorpe Mark Station and what they're calling a relay just outside Baltimore on our side of things, Guinness and Diageo announced that they were going to close up shop on this 100 hectoliter system that was brewing the Guinness Baltimore Blonde, which had really obviously tied itself to Maryland and the Maryland flag.
We don't know what's going to happen short of Heavy Seas becoming Maryland's largest brewer, but what I think is really fascinating is that 5 years ago, ex-Maryland Governor Larry Hogan said, Maryland's open for business. He said 200 jobs are coming to Baltimore County. Well, now we know there's something like 97 jobs being lost via Diageo, the parent company that owns Guinness. So really, we're down to about 100 jobs in 5 years. So it's really a walking back of the promise that the ex-governor said. We know there's a bunch of Maryland brewers who are upset. They felt like Diageo Guinness specifically had the red carpet rolled out for them with some legislation taking place. But really, the biggest blow for us is, 97 people out of a job, 97 people that were Diageo employees making Baltimore Blonde. And there's been some talk in the Maryland legislation. One person was offering up $500,000 to keep Baltimore Blonde in Maryland. Heavy Seas said, we'll do that. We're up for the job. But a friend of DC Beer Media, Dave Infante, the author of the Fingers newsletter, had a really funny take, which was like, it seems weird to throw $500,000 to keep 97 jobs that ultimately have been classified unnecessary. Like, what are we doing, Maryland? So check on your favorite Maryland brewers, especially those local to us in DC, and keep Maryland beer alive. The Brewers Association of Maryland is doing a bang up job, and it's certainly not on them that Diageo decided to leave or Flying Dog decided to leave. But check on your Maryland brewery friends.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I do want to keep it Maryland here just for a minute as we talk about upcoming events. Denizens is going to do their monthly open house in Riverdale Park. They'll pop some bottles, some rare stuff from the cellar. It'll be really cool. It's not an event, but it is a Maryland brewery. This is your last week for Astrolab before they shut down and before Third Hill comes in. Looking at like a mid-June opening there. We know they're going to keep a couple of the recipes around and you'll still see fresh as, and that's great. But obviously our best to Matt and Emma and the Astrolab team as well.
We love you, Emma and Matt and everybody. And I know all the regulars are really bummed, but excited to see what's coming up. But like Jake said, this is the last weekend. They are going to be open on Memorial Day. So they're extending their hours so you can squeeze your last little bit of Astrolab love in. So check out their social media. They posted their updated hours until the last day, which is Memorial Day. So cheers to you guys. Love you.
Yeah. And once you're done celebrating with Astrolab, check out some other spots around town. We know that there is the Oud Beersel Lambic Tasting with Master Blender Gert Christiaens at the Sovereign on May 31st. Ooh. So right before June starts, Oud Beersel, one of my favorite lambics from Belgium. Also coming down the pike on June 1st, Coven Brewing at Church Key. Coven Brewing, very excited to welcome them to DC on June 1st. Also at Church Key on June 8th, we'll see Untold Brewing. Untold Brewing, I believe, making their DC debut June 8th at Church Key. Before June 8th at Church Key, June 2nd, DC Brau is having their open mic night. So June 2nd at 7 p.m., open mic night, DC Brau on Bladensburg Road, the district's oldest production brewery. Always a good time at open mic night. What else is going on as we close out May, look towards June?
I'm really looking forward to June. It's always a fun month. We've had amazing weather, so I hope that continues. But speaking of DC Brau, one of the lovely people over at Brau filled out our beer release form. So shout out to Brau. Whoop, whoop.
Hey.
And what do you think it is for June? It's the 6th annual Pride Pills collaboration with Ren Beer this year. It's a 4.5 ABV Pilsner I'm super excited. And the proceeds are going to help benefit the Washington Blade. It is SMYAL. So yeah, go check that out. And I'm looking forward, as always, to our beer shares. We just had our last beer share at Right Proper. Love everybody that came. And the fine folks at Bluejacket have offered to host us. So June, the beer share will be at Bluejacket, which is really freaking cool. So make sure you check out dcbeer.com, sign up for our newsletter so you can find out how to RSVP for that.
And I can give you 3 reasons why you should show up, and each of those reasons is a liter of Sierra Nevada celebration, a Jeroboam procured by one Mike Stein. Keeping it ballpark Navy Yard, the Brewers Ball is going to be Friday, June 9th at the Wharf. It is now June's only beer fest down there on the waterfront because there's no more Savor, but don't worry. There'll still be Snallygaster, and you should stay tuned to watch our space for that. We also want to shout out the day after that is Wheatland Springs Land Beer Fest, and so I think you'll see a fair amount of DC Beer folks doing a little road tripping out there.
You definitely will. You're going to see some of the Women's Brew Culture Club and all of us DC Beer folks. I'm pretty sure we're all going as far as I know. So I want to shout out Bonnie for being so awesome out at Wheatland Spring. Hella big shout out to all of our Patreon members, Bill DeBon, Justin Brody, Bill Butcher, and Thor Cheston. You should be a DC Beer member as well. You get lots of awesome perks. So go to dcbeer.com and check it out how to be our Patreon member.
Some of those perks are provided by the good people at the Arlington Brew Shop, Julie and Beth.
These 2 wonderful women are the masterminds behind the Brew Shop in Arlington, Virginia. Welcome, Julie, Beth, to the DC Beer Show.
Hey, Brandy.
Hi, Brandy. I was going to let you both kick this off by telling our listeners about the Brew Shop and how you both got into the beer retail world.
I'm Julie. Beth and I met at our old job. We were both litigation consultants. We're both CPAs, accountants by trade. Our offices were next door to each other at the firm that we worked at. We bonded over homebrewing. Initially, we would do quad brew days where our husbands would brew, we would brew. So we'd have usually 4 different brews going at once in generally your backyard, Beth. Your dog would be there. We have the brew dog, all of that. So we bonded over homebrewing, and I think we just were sitting around drinking too much at one point and said, you know what, we should open a homebrew shop in Arlington, and joked about it for a very long time, and then started sort of looking into it and started, you know what, let's think about this. So the idea started as homebrewing, but once we got in and started doing market research, we looked and said, you know what, there's no bottle shop on the corridor, like the Rosslyn-Ballston corridor. Similarly, there's really no wine store on the Rosslyn-Ballston corridor at that time either. You could go to grocery stores. We did have someone tell us they were buying their wine at CVS before we opened. So we were certainly meeting a need when we opened. But we did, once we got going on market research and realized, like, hey, we should turn this into more than just a homebrew shop. This should be a space for all things brew, beer, wine, homebrew, the whole thing. And I joke to people, our husbands were homebrewers first, and then they got us into it. So I now joke with people, like, be careful what you get your wife into, because she might steal your hobby and then turn it into her job.
How long did you guys toil over this? How long did you joke about it and talk about it?
It had to be at least a couple of years. And yeah, because once we thought about it, and then the process of putting together a business plan, finding space, building the space, permitting, all of that took forever. So if you look at our logo, it says established 2015. But we opened in 2016, January 2016.
I assumed you had the retail shop mostly and then the homebrew equipment, because that's just usually how it goes. So I know that 3 Stars was really the only local brewery to sell homebrew essentials, hops and equipment and stuff. How long did you sell the homebrew supplies before you actually brought in the beer?
it all happened at once. So when we opened on day one, we had all three components.
Oh,
So the
okay.
homebrew supplies, packaged beer, draft beer for growler and crowler fills, and then wine. So we wanted to be sort of the place where you would go to buy a beer to drink while you're making a beer, because no one wants to make beer sober, right? No, you want to drink a beer while you're making beer. So it all happened at once. And you brought up a great point, Brandy. It's funny because one of the main hurdles that we had when opening, especially from the homebrew supply, was convincing our homebrew partners that there was a need in this area for another homebrew shop. And obviously there is, because, the existing shops weren't metro accessible. And Arlington itself has a huge homebrew community. We work a lot with DC homebrewers, but we also have Grist, which meets right down the street from where our shop is. So there's a lively homebrew community in Arlington itself.
I was actually going to ask, do you see a lot of DC homebrewers coming to you in Arlington?
Yes. And we have people that drive from so far away to come to our store specifically for homebrew supplies.
Yeah.
They're really, like people say some people drive over an hour to come to our store, which is, kind of crazy to me.
I know that having a business is a lot of work. Folks usually ask what the hardest part of their job is. I'm curious what you both say is your favorite aspect of owning the brew shop.
I mean, for me, and I did this today, it's in the middle of an ordering day, so it's like a heavy paperwork day. But I got to just sit around and talk about beer with several people. Just people come in and there's a particular beer that they like or are passionate about that we do or don't have, and we just kind of down the rabbit hole on it. And a lot of homebrewers especially love to chat about beer and what's behind it. And
Very much so.
But people who don't homebrew, people who don't homebrew though are really into it as well. Like with the way beer is marketed now, and this has been a change I think from when we first opened to now, where almost every beer will have on the can what hops are in the beer. They might have a little bit about the grist that's in the beer. Like there's a lot of information. And so people who don't homebrew still know a lot about it. And they'll know like, oh yeah, I like Nelson hops, or, I like Quebec yeast or things like this. So to just kind of like sit around and shoot the shit about beer, I think is my favorite part of the job. And I did it several times today, which is great, especially on a heavy paperwork day where I feel like I'm a little bit trapped in the computer.
Everyone in the beer community is just so inviting, like, hey, try this beer. So I definitely see that, you get a lot of people coming in wanting to shoot the shit, which is funny because you guys do not serve beer, correct?
Correct. It's a major rabbit hole in Virginia ABC law that really just is not allowed.
We do tastings.
Yeah.
So we have like the sample pours, and since we have draft lines as well for growlers and crowlers, we do allow people to sample off of the draft lines. So there's a little bit of sort of tasting kind of back.
Yeah, that makes sense. I wanted to mention that it's the same setup as Craft Beer Cellar in DC. And, I love Erica, and Erica's doing the DC beer community justice. And I think it's funny because both of the best bottle shops in the area are owned by women. And when I was on the panel with Erica talking about women in the industry, she says she gets so many customers come in and just assume she doesn't know anything because she's a woman. Do you experience that? Or like, hey, can I talk to the owner here? And like, oh, that's me. Does that happen to you guys?
Yes, definitely happens. It happens with customers. It also happens with beer reps, which I think is even more disappointing.
Sure.
I'm sure Erica, first off, we have so much respect and appreciation for Erica, and we send people to her store all the time because we carry different things because of the wonderful laws between BC and Virginia. But yes, it does happen. And all I can really say is that it's disappointing, and I hope people are learning that women can be knowledgeable about beer and homebrewing too. I actually think it's probably worse on the homebrewing side than it is the straight beer drinking side. I don't know if you agree with me, Julie.
Yeah, I mean, it's been going on, since we opened. It happens every so often. It certainly happens less now than it did because people know us. So people come in and they know who we are, and they even know our palates. They know, oh, I'm looking for a porter. Let me talk to Julie.
Right.
So it happens less on the customer side than it did, but it certainly still happens. And yeah, like you say, on the supplier side, it's absolutely still there. We have tried very hard to, and I think I was telling one of our employees about this, sort of asked like how the distributor relationships work. And so I'm not going to pretend that we have come in and, broken down or dismantled the boys club in any way, but I think we've gotten into it. We can sit at the table with the boys sometimes now, which is one way to look at it. But yeah, I would say my disappointment is stronger for that happening on the supplier side.
I recently just met you, despite you being well known in the beer community. I don't really venture into Virginia very often, but I happened to meet you at a really great beer event in DC, and it's just I've noticed that more women are showing up, and I appreciate both of you for being strong role models, I guess is the word I want to say, for women in the beer community. So I've been totally gung-ho and into it, especially with the new women's group. And everyone's just so excited about meeting other women who are influential in the beer community. And I love that. I have some questions for you from Mike Stein. Mike asks some very specific beer questions. So Mike Stein wants to know what surprises you both in terms of what beer sells and what doesn't. What styles do you wish sold better? How do you decide what to sell?
What beer sells the most? I think we are the first to see changes and shifts in styles. So right now, one of the most demanded styles is a West Coast IPA. So we can finally feel the shift happening on the IPA front. Lagers are also super hot right now. And I think that's thanks to people like Wheatland, Landmade, Schilling. They're making it a cool kids beer with so many nuances. So I think those are the things that people are most interested in right now. However, of course, we're still selling tons of hazy IPAs, but I think people are dialing back just a little bit on that front.
Yeah, I don't know that I would say I'm surprised at I probably would have said it 5 years ago, how well lagers are doing right now. It's a thing that 5 years ago, everyone in the beer industry was waiting for people to get into. When you'd ask, like, what do you hope is coming? Everyone's like, lagers. I hope lagers are going to be the next hit. And we're finally there. I think we sell a ton of lagers. And like Beth was saying, it's due to some really cool breweries, and many of them local too, that are making excellent lagers that just, like you said, they have a nuance. Like I'm drinking one right now, that they're all different. It's not like, oh, all lagers taste the same. That's a preconceived notion that people may have had even as little as 5 years ago that has been broken down. So that's one of my favorite, I love that is what's happening.
I'll also say that we sell more wheat beer and more seasonal beer every year than I could ever imagine. We are very much a neighborhood shop. So we have lots of cool kid beers. We have lots of the latest releases and all of that. But we are first and foremost a shop for a neighborhood. And so those are wheat beer, like your Port City Optimal Wit, tons and tons of it. It's a fantastic, solid, year-round beer that always scratches the itch for people. But it always shocks me when I see how much we sell every single week.
I mean, it only has 6 GABF medals. It's a
it's
fantastic beer. Yeah,
you kind of answered a bunch of the other questions, so that Mike had. Which beer would you wish sold more? Like this, what style specifically that you see doesn't really
on a personal
go
level?
Off the shelves?
More porters always for me. I just
why is that? But
I can't drink enough porters, and so I mean they make fun of me all summer. It'll be 95 degrees and humid, and I'm still drinking a porter. But I want that 5 or 6% ABV, roasty, full body, even though low ABV. And I love to just try as many as I can. So I would say porter because on a personal level, I just want more available to me.
love that Beth laughed when you answered.
Because it's so true. And Julie will even take a porter in the shower. It's her shower beer is a porter, which just makes zero sense to me. It just seems stifling and hot.
I mean, that sounds kind of fun to
Anything
me.
can be a shower beer. You just get done playing a soccer game. Anything can be a shower beer.
Or you could just, drink a smoke beer in the shower and feel like you're in a cedar sauna.
You can, there you go. Yeah. I like it.
So I ask, well, you've already answered this question, Julie. Before we bid adieu, I ask all the guests this: what is your personal favorite kind of beer?
Oh yeah, probably porters. I think I drink a lot of lagers too, so I had a hard debate with myself on what to drink during this podcast. I did end up with a lager instead of a porter.
What are you drinking? I usually ask that.
Oh yeah, I'm drinking the Crooked Run Allura, which is a Italian pils that I thought was only going to be at their new Crooked Run location that's in DC. They were brewing it down there, and when I went to the opening, I talked to Jake and was like, "This is fantastic. I had never had it before." And he said, "Yeah, we're just brewing it for this location." And then somewhere along the way, a little snuck into distribution like 2 weeks ago, and so I got my hands on it, of course.
Beth, are you having an alcohol right now?
Oh, I'm certainly having an alcohol right now. My personal favorite style is Oktoberfest, which I feel like should be brewed year round. And I keep saying it. Oktoberfest all day, every day. I look forward to August when they roll around. I am currently drinking Vazen's Mexican lager. So
that is a good one.
Good.
Yeah.
Just enough malt and then a little bit of lime, a little bit of salt.
Before we say goodbye, I want you to tell the listeners that about like your weekly tastings and what to expect and where you guys are located.
We are located at 2004 Wilson Boulevard in the Courthouse neighborhood, just about a block from the Courthouse Metro and a short walk from the Rosslyn Metro. And then we have tasting events every single Friday from 5 to 7. And they usually feature different breweries, sometimes wine, but mostly breweries. This coming Friday, we have Sierra Nevada. Who's after that, Julie? You have the calendar memorized.
Potter's Craft Cider. And then we've got Ocelot coming in. Phil Runco is going to come pour
that's
for us,
awesome.
In the middle of June. Yeah, we're excited
Cool.
to see him. Yeah.
Thanks for coming on, and I hope to see you at all the future DC Beer events.
See you at Wheatland next month, right?
I'll see you. I'm excited.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks.
Cheers.
Brandy.
We love the Arlington Brew Shop. The Brew Shop owners are some of my favoriteest people, selling me beer, wine, and cider, fine cider, in Arlington.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Beth. Everybody, Arlington Brew Shop. They sell singles in case you can want to try something before you walk out with a 6-pack. They might also sell you multiple cases of really good beer. Anyway, they pack like a lot of punch into that space. Definitely worth checking out. All right. Fingers crossed that the weather holds out. Fingers crossed that the next 3 or 4 largest breweries in Maryland don't decide to sell or shut down. That would be bad. Check in on your Maryland friends. They're not okay, even if they say they are. We're at DCB or across social media.
We just want to say, as we put the finishing touches on Asian American Pacific Islander month, as well as Jewish American History Month, every month is a month full of rich diversity for us at DC Beer. As we move towards Pride Month, every month is Pride Month. We have pride in you. Have pride in us. Come visit us at dcbeer.com. DC Beer Media would love to see you at our next share. Join our newsletter. We'll see you on the socials at DC Beer.
That was a good one. Woo, well done, sir. That was good.